Okay, it's the first anniversary of Spider-Verse, and I want to talk about one of my favorite scenes in the movie, but we're going to do things a bit differently this time. Stop thinking for a second and just feel this moment with me. Ugh, it is so disgustingly satisfying. So what makes it satisfying? That's what I want to know. I am not exaggerating when I tell you I have watched this 53-second sequence of Gwen rescuing everyone from the falling helicopter well over 500 times. I have literally been obsessed with these 53 seconds since I first saw the movie. There's even a rumor, untrue, that the second time I went to see Spider-Verse, I recorded the scene from the back row on my cell phone just so I could watch it over and over until the digital release. Completely, utterly unfounded. Lies, by the way, how dare you? But that is the reality. I have been obsessed with these 53 seconds for the last year, and I've been trying to figure out since then, is it just because it's visually satisfying? Like the rhythm, the flow, the momentum, the precision, the coordination. It is undoubtedly very cool how everything is exactly on beat and it's also controlled and all comes together. That's fine, but after like watching this until my eyeballs fall out, I'm just dying to know, is it really not different than any of those oddly satisfying video compilations? Is that all it is, or is there something more here? Am I going insane? And yes, there's definitely a hint that there is something more. It's this. Drums mean a lot to Gwen, undoubtedly. There's a reason the movie starts with drums. We spend a lot of time on the drums in the intro and in other parts of the movie. We get this whole talk of Gwen longing to join a band, which is a huge metaphor for her struggles, and the character who probably supports Gwen the most in this movie calls Gwen his drummer. And just on a symbolic character level, Gwen keeps her suit inside her drum set. She keeps her picture of Miles inside her drum set. When I think about that and I see this, it makes me think, okay, maybe there's more to this, but I don't know. So let's see. Let's just explore freely. Let's just look through this and see if there's anything more here, because if I don't do that, I'm just gonna go insane. Okay, so the first question is, what is this scene? What is it doing? Simple question and simple answer. This is a scene of Gwen triumph. We are seeing Gwen do what she is best at. It's all her strengths, full force on display. It's gonna save all these people. It's gonna save her dad. It's gonna impress her new spider parents. You wanna know who Gwen is at her best, what she can do at her best, how she operates at her best? It's these 53 seconds. That is what this scene is. So that was my line of thinking, and as soon as I thought that, I was like, oh, wait a second. Is that really what's going on? Because the scene isn't just a nice, friendly, let's build up to a cool, empowering superhero scene. No, this is 14 minutes into the movie already. And once I realized that and I thought back to what those 14 minutes are, what this intro is, what the whole lead up to this is, that made me see the scene in a different light. Let's take a step back here before we delve into the intro. One of the questions I had in the back of my mind with this Gwen helicopter scene was, even if I wanted to, how do you make a 53-second action scene with no dialogue into anything besides just 53 seconds of superficially cool jumping around and swinging and running around and cool visuals? Like, it seems like there's only so much you can do. Even if you wanted more depth out of this scene, there's just no space. What, are you gonna add a bunch of lines of deep moving dialogue here? Gonna add a bunch of story beats that interrupt this glorious flow? Where's the space to do anything? And I think the answer is, as shown by the scene, if you want depth but don't have space, don't add to what it is, add to what it isn't. Or put another way, don't add to what it is, add to what it's connected to. Think about The Wizard of Oz. After the tornado, you have Dorothy entering this new world, and it has to feel magical and wonderful and vibrant, and they do a great job with this massive set and the costumes and the music, etc. They put a ton of effort into all that, but at a certain point, it's done, and you just can't do more. There's no more space to add anything here in the setting. So if your cup is full, you don't want to overstuff it, where can you find the space? Well, what about the Kansas cup? There's a lot of space there. Make Kansas black and white, and then change literally nothing about the Oz scene. And the Oz scene is now different. It's now better. It's more vibrant. It's more magical. You change nothing about the scene. You change a different scene that's connected to it. And because of that connection, it enriched this scene. The reason these 53 seconds hit so hard is because they are unlike anything that came before it. And there is so much being communicated about who Gwen is in that contrast. Okay, we need to look at this intro in depth. This intro, by the way, is just one of the most magical, mysterious, perplexing things I have ever seen in any movie. It is so weird as a way to start a story, and it's easy to just stop at, weird, it feels weird. But if you break down what gives it this quality, it's actually extremely precise. Many of you guys are aware of my ask what, not why thing. Let me go a different route with this one. When? When exactly is this happening? At what point in the story is Gwen saying this? Or is it in the story? We're seeing scenes from the first movie, we're seeing scenes scenes from later in this movie, but then it's also implied that she's mulling over all this stuff while she's playing the drums in this scene, i.e. at the beginning of the movie. So then how does she know when exactly is she? And then the scene continues, and once again we are losing our grip on time. This whole sequence we are drifting in and out of the past and the present, and even the present scenes don't exactly feel consecutive. Like, this is subtle, but look at this.
I always wanted to be in a band.
That's not where a door leads. Auditorium doors don't open right out squarely into the middle of a city sidewalk, and like we're supposedly in Chelsea, I don't think Broadway even technically cuts through Chelsea. And then of course this seamlessly into the subway now, and then from there out the window to a flashback, and then we're flying through the days at the dinner table and then back in the subway, which opens its doors into another flashback. What we're seeing here is that Gwen's life is this big chaotic mess, and that is being expressed by a chaotic, messy experience of time. Messy life, messy experience of time. Let's label that fact number 1. Fact number 2, if we just continue through the scene, we get to this really difficult conversation she has with her dad. It's awkward, she's not able to express anything she's feeling, anything about who she really is, and this we know is already a big theme with Gwen. She is terrible at communicating with her words. She's just really awkward.
I'm Miles.
I'm Gwenda.
She gets really nervous and blurts out kind of random, unintelligible stuff.
It's African. I'm South African. No.
And we see more examples in this movie for her adorable inability to read the room.
Rio, hi! I've heard so much about you.
You're using my first name. Okay.
And you must be Jeff?
She called me Jeff. Soon to be Captain Morales.
Ah, Captain.
And of course more serious scenes where she's actually having real trouble expressing herself.
Where have you been?
Just been out murdering all my friends.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay.
It separates her from other people in her life, and it leads to her being a loner like we see in the drum scene in the beginning.
You're gonna snap.
I'm fine.
That's not how someone who's fine would say that.
Say, I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks.
Whoa. How are you?
But it's in that scene that we actually get a new development in this facet of Gwen's character. In movie 1, it was just the awkwardness, this deficiency with communication. In movie 2, we see the same deficiency in expressing herself, but we also get an answer to the question, how is she good at expressing herself? If you listen closely, she actually does tell us exactly.
I didn't join a band so I could talk about my feelings.
Well, I did.
I joined it so I could hit my feelings with sticks.
Gwen expresses herself best with her physicality. And we see this as well over and over in this movie. That awkward conversation with her dad, how does that scene end?
Say, do punk rock to give your old man a hug.
When she can't find the words with Miles, how does she express her feelings for him? And you see signs of this elsewhere. She just prefers communicating using her physicality. Even in scenes where she is talking, her body language is just so expressive, even more than what she's actually saying. The whole sequence with Miles is actually a very big display of this. We get this really awkward conversation in his room, but how she really wants to bond with him is by doing physical stuff together. So fact 2, Gwen is not good at communicating with her words, but she excels at non-verbal communication. And really fact 3 as well, this is more straightforward. Gwen is isolated because of this communication thing, among a lot of other things. Of course, she can't talk about her Spidey identity with anyone because of obvious reasons, because secret identity, and also she can't talk about the trauma she's been through with that identity, and that creates distance, and then the communication skills just make it worse. So fact 3, who she is has isolated her from basically everyone in her life. Last item I want to point out before we get back to the scene has to do with this transition, which has consistently weirded me out since the very first time I saw the movie. Look at this and also listen to it as well. We have a monster lizard rampaging through prom. Why are we still grooving out to chill beats? And in a similar vein, this is something I didn't notice until very recently. You look at the quote-unquote vulture fight, and there's just not a lot of fighting on Gwen's part. She kicks him once, okay, she's doing the superhero thing, and then she spends the rest of the time just riding around on his back and getting tossed around and evading stuff. And honestly, with Lizard Peter 2, he crashes the party, Gwen stops him from hurting Ned, and then he throws her around and he tries to attack her, and she still doesn't fight him exactly. This is definitely a get off me kick. And then he is defeated, but not by fighting with her, he's crushed by rubble. And I think this speaks to another consistent pattern with this movie. Villains kind of just don't matter. Everyone is over it. Obviously, this like Spot's entire conflict. The goal isn't victory over his nemesis, but just like to have a nemesis, to have anyone take him seriously as a villain. When we get to the Spider Society, we see that the villains are kind of just these fun zoo animals, basically. And of course, you listen to how Gwen talks to Vulture in our scene.
Where are you from, bud?
This is the movie where the villains aren't the villains. We've got bigger issues. But before we can even get there, we find Gwen living living the superhero life, which should be amazing, but she's just lost. It's just kind of aimless, and it's only getting more so. Squircle and I were discussing this, and here's how she articulated exactly what was going on with Gwen as expressed through these intro scenes.
Well, yeah, I think it does have to do with that kind of like Spider-Person identity, but also specifically the way that it relates to like the social place that that role has for her. The thing with her not gelling super well with her band and her feeling kind of like out of place in her life, and the role not doing what it's supposed to do, because she's like we're here to like make music, and she's like, no, I'm here to hit my feelings with sticks. And in the same way, like her role as a spider person is also not working the way it should. Like, instead of her being able to do this thing that she does because of her dad, it makes her much more distanced from her dad. And instead of protecting her friend, it killed her friend. Like, basically all of these things that this role was supposed to do, it's not doing. And it's doing the opposite.
It's not just being unengaged with her life, it's that her attempts to engage, meaning her expensive energy towards filling these roles, goes unappreciated. It powers nothing. And even worse, it backfires. It powers things it's not supposed to. So that's what the aimlessness is. Gwen does not know where in her life to invest her energy. That's fact number 4. So these facts paint a pretty bleak picture, and we can think of them all. We can take this whole intro and think of it as black and white Kansas, and now we can return to our 53 seconds of Gwen triumph, and we can look at that and see it as Oz in Technicolor. So without further ado, welcome to Oz. Fact number 1, Gwen's chaotic life is expressed by a chaotic sense of time. Well, look at this. Look at this. And look at this. Perfectly timed out to a millisecond. When I mentioned the satisfying flow of the scene before, what it means that things in the scene are flowing, is that we're getting perfect transitions from one action to the next, meaning it's even more than just no breaks between actions. You can see that Gwen has timed every step of this plan so precisely that each move is starting before the previous one is finished. When she jumps out initially, she's already started her first webs, and again by the time of her next jump, she's shot more. That epic spin is happening as she's doing the triple shot, and then she swings up, she's reaching up to secure her landing, and she hits the ground running 3 steps exactly, then jump no hesitation at all. And meanwhile, Miguel and Jess are already on their way, and Gwen is already pulling as they get into position. So that smoothness aspect combined with the precision, the control, especially this part where time literally slows down mentally for Gwen to accommodate this step of the plan, all of this is countering fact 1. Gwen's chaotic life is expressed through a chaotic sense of time, but in this moment, she has complete control over that chaos, expressed through her complete control over time. And then also another one of our facts, Gwen doesn't know where in her life to invest her energy. Here, she can go all out. The momentum and the fight that was lacking with the bad guys earlier, remember, that's not what this scene is about. This scene is about saving her dad and these innocent people from a falling part of the world. That gives her a sense of purpose. That's the superhero she wants to be. That makes sense to her. So we see that fight, that energy return here in this scene. We are seeing the full Mogwentum right now. Gwen is firing on all cylinders, and it's not like it was in her other roles. It's not too much in wrong places. It's not backfiring. It's not going to wrong places. It's not dysfunctional. It's exactly, precisely the amount of energy the task required. And obviously, fact number 2, Gwen is not good at communicating with her words, but she excels in nonverbal communication. I'm sure you've already spotted it. What must be so rewarding to Gwen here, aside from the whole triumph, was that this was all she had to do. One nod, and the entire plan was communicated non-verbally. These are her people. This is her band. Fact number 3, Gwen is isolated. Here, finally, the Spidey stuff is not isolating her. This is what's bringing her close to people, and what's more, closer specifically to her dad, yes, but also her dad and mom, kind of.
Will you adopt me?
That doesn't exactly last, but overall the point is Gwen is doing her thing, and it's finally working. And not just working, it is perfect. It is undoing the chaos in her life. It's bringing back her sense of control, and most importantly, her role, her sense of purpose, saving people, not from villains. We're also setting her up to care about saving them from the world collapsing on them. That's what this whole movie is about, and we're setting that up here too. But saving people, specifically saving her dad, it's all just working until...
You have the right to remain silent.
And yeah, this is a fake Gwen triumph moment. Gwen's life is tough. It's broken, and you can't just chance upon a fixed life. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of pain and tears, and Gwen just has a long road ahead of her. And with that, it's finally time to talk about the drums. This is already strongly connected to everything we've been talking about. You're probably already seeing connections, but I didn't want to box myself into just seeing drums through this one scene, or just through these two scenes. I'm not a music person, but I asked my friend Aiden, who is a music person, and what he told me about drums in general was fascinating. And I was asking him completely in abstract. This is not him describing Gwen, or at least him not trying to describe Gwen. So here's what he said.
What's different about drums, typically, is that there's no tonal element to them. You've got all your other instruments with tons of notes and melodies and harmonies and chords. A drum set has so many fewer options. You have all your different drums and cymbals, and they each make their own set sound, and that's it. There's no range of tones that you can make melodies with, and it's different kinds of sounds too. It's bangs, it's pops, crashes, booms. It's the kind of sounds that punch their way through all the other sounds. It won't get mixed up with the other instruments. You'll always hear it. It will come through no matter what you do. And what this also means is that it is easily recognizable the exact moment you hit a drum. If it's off even by a little, the sound will be more noticeable. Compare that to a guitarist or vocalist who's slightly off beat. It just won't be quite as apparent as the drums. And this is also why you can have a ton of violins in an orchestra, or a ton of brass instruments in a big band, or you'll have multiple guitars in a rock band, but only one drummer, because you don't need more. So this is why drums have the foundational role that they do. It's this odd interplay between the things that a drum can't do and the things that can only be done by a drum. They are by far the best suited to set the beat, to set rhythm, to determine tempo and coordination, to not be a leader like the lead guitarist or lead vocal is. Not a leader in terms of the entertainment experience of the listener, but to be a leader operationally. And a drummer in a unique way can't really be more than that. With like a guitar or vocals, sure, you could play the role of setting rhythm and taking the lead operationally. But with drums, they're so particularly suited to that foundational operational role that it also makes them functionally incapable of taking on many of the other roles.
Aiden wasn't trying to describe Gwen, but he absolutely was. It is unreal how well this drummer role fits this version of the character. Like drums, Gwen doesn't have tonal options. She is sorely limited in that respect. She just can't communicate like other people do. But what she can do is all these blunt physical things. And yeah, she is a virtuoso at that stuff, but it's a very limited tool set for all the various roles a person needs to play in their life. You, Gwen, simply are not a tonal instrument. You cannot harmonize with your dad using your drum set. You cannot go off and do your own thing when your band needs you to set the rhythm for them. And when you are off like this, because your set of talents is so effective at what it is, it's so much louder, it's unfair, but when you are off, it's going to mess things up more than when other people mess up. The consequences are going to be that much louder, that much more dire, and everyone is going to notice. Drummers just have this unfair amount of responsibility, and so without necessarily getting a proportional amount of appreciation from your average listener, no one is necessarily paying attention to them until they mess up, and it's all on their shoulders. The whole functionality of the band rests on their ability to do what only they can do. It is interesting that Gwen in the Spider-Verse franchise is the only Spider-Gwen. We got a million Peters and just one Gwen. Lots of other instruments in the band, but just one drummer. It's all on her. Hobie understands this better than anyone. He recognizes the potential she has. And that makes sense. He's a musician. He is a lead guitarist who understands that the band cannot function without a drummer to coordinate them all. And that's why even though he wants to bring about change in the Spider Society, he doesn't put all of his efforts into like beating Miguel out as a leader, as the frontman. He understands that what will maximize his effectiveness is activating the potential of his drummer, his operational leader. And he puts all of his energy and effort into that. So back to our scene, we get the drums here because drums are all these things we talked about. This is Gwen's rhythm. This is Gwen's nonverbal expression. This is how she connects to people. This is her sense of control when it comes to time, setting the pace precisely to bring order to her reality. All of this is what we already said, but then it's this deeper layer as well.
I always wanted to be in a band. Guess I just never found the right one.
It's more than just connecting with people. It's more than just easing her isolation. In terms of what Gwen is a drummer. What someone like her can offer the world, someone with her limitations and her strengths. This scene, this role is where she can be what she is. That existential rightness is what we're experiencing here. In that sense, it's similar to Spot feeling this existential need to be a villain, and Miles' existential need to be a spider person, and Miguel losing himself and then assuming this identity of a different Miguel to feel like he's existing again. And then when that fails, Morales inventing this grand role for himself, and even Peter in the first movie losing himself existentially in his Spider-Person role, and then going on this journey to find that sense of self-existence again. That is what Gwen is thinking mistakenly that she's experiencing in this moment. Or to put it another way, it's what she's tasting in this moment, getting a much needed sampling of, that this is right. This is where I belong. This is where I can be. Playing this coordinating role, this operational leadership role in this maneuver with this new band that she found, whose purpose is to save people, who allows her to save her dad, bringing her life into harmony in a way she cannot do by herself with her limited set of tools. It's glorious, and it is real, but it's just the wrong band. She can play with them for a song or two, but at the end of the day, it's not her music. It's not her people. My friend Noam, who plays bass, was describing a situation where he was jamming with some new friends he met who were all musicians, and one of these new friends was this incredibly talented drummer. And the type of talent this guy had, it wasn't just like, oh, this guy is so good at keeping time, he can make cool rhythms, he can go really fast, he can do all sorts of complicated stuff. No, it was more than that. This drummer was paying attention to exactly how Noam was improvising, and he started picking up on this pattern to Noam's riffs that Noam didn't even know he was doing. And the drummer started doing this complementary pattern of accents to Noam's notes. That is what a great drummer does. It's not about setting a rhythm or creating a rhythm. It's about finding the rhythm, finding those deeper patterns of the people around you, and knowing how to use your limited toolkit to maximize them and their talents, all of them, all these talented musicians, into a band, into one force working in tandem with each other. That, I think, is a major substratum of Gwen's development in this movie. If your mindset is about setting a rhythm for people to act, then it won't matter who those people are as long as they're talented musicians. But if your mindset is finding the natural rhythm that already exists in people and using your coordination to unleash the potential within them, then who the people are matter more than anything. I've been showing this clip from the end but not playing the audio. Here's the audio. Now it's clear in the music that Gwen is the foundation for people like Peter to shine, to come in with his badass guitar theme which takes center stage here. Compare that to Gwen setting her own rhythm that Miguel's horns can barely fit into. Gwen has become a better drummer because she's become a better Gwen. What I wanted from analyzing this 53-second scene, this scene isn't important. Even after this analysis, this isn't like a vital Gwen moment in her arc. It is a moment in her arc, but what was important for me was to take a work that I knew had depth overall and take just a scene in a great movie, and specifically something like this, a short action scene with no dialogue. And I wanted to show what great writers and here really great artists and composers and directors can do with just a 53-second action scene with zero dialogue. I want to show how rich even the smallest components of great art can be. And just to make clear, I've said this in past videos, but just to make clear what type of analysis this is, the point isn't that you watch these 53 seconds and see all these ideas. The point isn't that the people crafting the scene were aware of all these ideas exactly as I formulated them, and we're intentionally injecting these ideas exactly as I explained it into the scene. That is not what's happening here at all. That's not what this is about at all. The point of breaking down a scene like this is to show that when you sense something deeper, it's because of stuff like this lurking under the surface. You get a sense at some level, somewhere on the spectrum of unconscious to conscious, whether it's seeing the drums and having this flash of a memory from the earlier drum scene, or when you see the scene at the end being like, drums, wait a second, that feels important. Or whether it's just an inexplicable strength of the feelings that the scene makes you experience, that there's something about the movement, the smoothness that feels so cool. Why does it feel so cool? The rhythm of her moments hitting exactly on beat. That feels so strong because whether you remember it or not, we've just had 14 minutes of her moving around like this, not on beat.
I always wanted to be in a band. Guess I just never found the right one.
And we've had long stretches where there's no rhythm at all to anything in the music. The premise behind the type of analysis I do is that good art is good for a reason, and those reasons don't need to be consciously known by the creator or by the audience to be felt by the audience. And if you are a writer getting yourself used to thinking in this way, climbing into the structure of great art and just crawling around a bit like this, whether by conscious implementation or just unconsciously letting this type of thinking impact you over time, that, paired with actually creating stuff and getting feedback, is the best way to improve at your craft. That's where I'm coming from. I made this video now because it's the first anniversary of Across the Spider-Verse, and if I had infinite time, I would do this with literally every scene in this freaking movie. I'm still so obsessed with it a whole year later. Even in making this video, I found myself just mesmerized by this dumb little action scene I've been watching over and over again, day after day, month after month. The last scene I did that with was the first scene I ever made a video about. It was the Jinx Echo fight scene, and isn't that kind of special how far we've come? And on that note, just like Arcane, I don't think I'll ever stop learning from Across the the Spider-Verse either. That's great art for you. That's really all there is to it. Subscribe, huge shout outs as always to everyone who helped me develop these ideas. Squircle, thanks so much.
I don't normally sound like that. I was sick.
Aiden, thank you.
Would you let him re-record?
I offered you to re-record if you wanted to.
Like 2 days before the video.
Okay. Next time, Squircle, next time. Aiden, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Cullen, huge thanks.
Happy to help.
Noah, thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
Okay, anyway, it's so nice to make Spidey content again, and I'm liking this pattern of using anniversary videos to talk about a new type of depth in media I've already analyzed the heck out of. Specifically, I do see this video as kind of a continuation of my first Arcane anniversary video where I found all these cool ways they created potential for depth through the big picture structure, and at the end of that video, I mentioned that the next step was to look at small picture phenomena, and that is this video. The ideas I found analyzing the small scene is exactly what I was looking for, just Spider-Verse instead of Arcane. So aside from just getting this out of my brain finally, Gwen has literally been swinging around my brain for the last year, now she's finally escaped. It was also just gratifying setting the goal to go this deep on a scene like this, and then finding the exact type of ideas I was looking for. But anyway, big thanks to the patrons. If you'd like to support the channel, consider following along there. We do monthly group analysis calls where we all just pick apart scenes basically like this for about 2 to 3 hours. Last call was about Star Wars, might be a sign of content plans in the not so distant future. But anyway, thank you so much. Your support means the world to me. And that's all I have for now, so hope you all enjoyed, and thanks for watching.